I never imagined a mundane day could turn into a heart-stopping rescue in Los Angeles. The sun was scorching, casting sharp shadows on the concrete, but I was locked in my thoughts. It felt like any other day. I was just heading to my favorite coffee shop, the one with the bold red door, the smell of freshly brewed coffee beckoning me like a siren's call. Little did I know that a single moment would shatter that calm. As I walked, I noticed something odd. A crowd had gathered near the fountain in the park. People were murmuring, their expressions a mix of confusion and shock. My heart raced as I pushed through, desperate to see what was happening. I caught sight of a man hunched over a young girl beside him, her face pale and tear-streaked. Panic surged in my chest as I stepped closer, the heat from the crowd pressing against me like a suffocating blanket. "What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling. Someone whispered back, "She's not breathing." Time seemed to freeze, the sounds of the crowd morphing into a white noise that roared in my ears. I could see the man, his hands trembling as he fumbled with a phone, calling for help. The little girl was lying there, motionless on the ground. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt helpless, like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. My pulse quickened. I had taken a CPR class once, long ago. Was it really still there, buried in me? As I pushed my way forward, every heartbeat thudded louder in my ears. I knelt beside them, the coolness of the pavement stark against the heat of the day. I hesitated, my hands hovering above her tiny chest. It felt surreal, like a nightmare where nothing was real. "Please, wake up," I whispered, barely audible against the gasps surrounding me. I laid my hands on her, steady and firm. 1, 2, 3 I counted, feeling the weight of every second stretch into eternity. The crowd swayed around us, emotions spiraling. Some cried, others shouted encouragement, while a few murmured doubts. It was chaotic, yet through it all, there was an eerie silence that wrapped around my thoughts. My mind raced. She looked so small, so helpless. Desperation clawed at my insides. Her pulse felt like a distant memory, and the world outside seemed to blur. The moment was both terrifying and electrifying, filled with potential and fear. Then, a siren wailed in the background, a piercing sound slicing through the tension. It grew louder, yet it felt like it was fading away. Would I be too late? Would the darkness that enveloped her remain? A sudden fear gripped me. What if I wasn't enough? Tears stung my eyes, but I pushed through. I had to believe. As I continued my desperate rhythm, chest compressions and rescue breaths, a thought hit me. What about her family? Where were they? The urgency shifted again. I asked, hoping someone might have an answer. But all I got were frantic glances. And then, just as hope began to flicker, something unexpected happened. The girl gasped a sharp, raspy breath that shattered the stillness. A collective sigh escaped the crowd, relief mingling with disbelief. But the question hung in the air, unanswered: would she stay with us? Just when I thought everything was shifting toward salvation, the girl's eyes fluttered open, and I felt a strange jolt of recognition, a connection I couldn't explain, but before I could process it, her gaze locked onto mine, wide with something I couldn't quite grasp. What did she see? That moment stretched, the atmosphere thick with meaning, and all I could think was, did I know her? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The world blurred back into focus as the little girl blinked at me, confusion etched across her delicate features. Her breathing was shallow, but she was alive, and that was a fragile thread of hope that ignited a flicker inside me. The crowd around us began to stir, the weight of their collective anxiety lifting ever so slightly. But even in that moment of triumph, a knot tightened in my chest. "Stay with me," I whispered urgently, leaning closer, scanning her face for signs of recognition. "Can you hear me? You're safe now." I wanted her to believe those words as much as I needed to. My heart raced not only from the adrenaline, but from an overwhelming urge to protect this child I'd only just met. The man beside her, tense and pale, was slowly coming back to life himself. He reached for her hand, his own trembling as he threaded his fingers through hers, something ineffably painful yet beautiful surfacing in his expression. Relief mixed with fear played on his face, like a delicate dance that left its mark. "Thank you," he gasped, his voice cracking. I nodded, feeling the heaviness in my soul as I kept vigil over the girl. Although she was awake, her spirit felt far away, and I couldn't shake the haunting feeling that perhaps I had awakened something dark within her. As the paramedics rushed in, their presence felt almost surreal. I watched as they took over, their practiced movements fostering an authority I couldn't quite rival. I glanced around at the faces in the crowd, each one reflecting a spectrum of emotions from gratitude to disbelief to lingering dread. An older woman, tears glistening in her eyes, reached out and clasped my hand briefly. "You did a great thing," she whispered, offering the kind of warmth that felt like sunlight breaking through the clouds. I managed a weak smile, though my heart was still unsettled. There was a soft lull after the initial chaos, the world momentarily stilling as the medics worked. My gaze wandered back to the girl. Her eyes were glazed, a faint spark flickering deep within. In that moment, I palpably felt a connection, an unspoken understanding, a resonance that clung to our shared experience, binding us together, however briefly. But then, as they prepared to take her away, I caught a glimpse of something extraordinary. An object slipped from her pocket, a small silver locket, glinting in the harsh sunlight. It clattered to the pavement, drawing my attention. I bent to pick it up, heart pounding anew. As I opened the locket, my breath caught in my throat. Inside lay a faded photograph of a woman and a young girl. Was that her? The resemblance was uncanny. "Her mother," the man said softly, eyes fixated on the locket as if it were the answer to a riddle he had been struggling with. There was pain in his voice, a sorrow I sensed he had been holding for far too long. That I handed it over, feeling the weight of so many unasked questions between us. "Do you know them?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man's eyes darted, worry creeping deeper into their depths. She needed to find her," he murmured, and in that instant, he crumbled. "I think I've lost her." The paramedics moved quickly, gathering to assist the girl, but a chasm yawned between reality and what was to come. A feeling of foreboding washed over me, and I knew the day was far from over. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, a strangled cry of desperation escaped her lips. "Daddy." It cut through me like a knife, sharp and heavy, turning inward with the echoes of my own unresolved wounds. The man rushed to her side, panic renewed, and I felt my heart break for them both. "Is she going to be okay?" he pleaded, desperation threading his voice. The medic nodded, but her expression remained guarded, like a storm cloud on the horizon promising rain, yet holding out, leaving us in the air with nothing but uncertainty. Suddenly, as the stretcher was wheeled away, the little girl turned her head back toward me. Her eyes met mine once more. In that fleeting look, there was a flicker of recognition, a spark that ignited the air between us. I know you," she stammered. My chest tightened. I shook my head, panicking at the implications. "You've got the wrong person," I said out loud, but inwardly I questioned. How could she possibly know me? Suddenly, my own memories churned like a tempest, and without warning, the darkness I thought I had laid to rest began creeping back, reminding me of all the moments I had tried to forget. What if her sudden recognition was more than just coincidence? What if our lives were tangled together in a way I couldn't yet comprehend? I felt a desperate pull to find out, but the panic in her father's eyes stopped me cold. I had stepped into this moment to be her savior, but who would save me now? With heavy breaths, I watched as they whisked her away, a dissonance between beginnings and endings, and questions that echoed in my mind. What did she know? And what had I inadvertently unleashed? A new weight settled in my heart. The day had promised normalcy but offered only complexity, hinting at a past I had once been naive enough to believe was behind me. The journey ahead loomed dark and uncertain, stretching out like a labyrinth with endless twists. As the sirens grew distant, leaving behind the remnants of chaos, I felt a deep chill settle in the pit of my stomach. Would I find the truth and free myself from the shadows, or was I now bound to confront something far greater than I had ever imagined? The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in muted pastels of orange and violet as I stood in the aftermath of chaos. The world seemed surreal, dulled by a thick layer of uncertainty that clung to me like an unwelcome blanket. The crowd had dispersed, moving on to more mundane concerns as the paramedic sirens faded into the distance, and I was left standing there, heart heavy and mind racing. I turned away from the scene, in search of solace, but my legs led me to the fractured remnants of that moment, a sobbing father grappling with the loss of the last threads connecting him to his daughter. The weight of his anguish bore down on me, as if by merely witnessing it, I had inherited part of his sorrow. I couldn't walk away. "Hey!" My voice was quieter than I intended as I approached him. He looked raw, skin stretched tight over bone, grief and worry merging into a mask that shattered my heart. "I'm really sorry." He didn't look at me, eyes fixated somewhere beyond, lost in the depths of his amorphous despair. "Do you know what she said?" His voice barely broke the stillness. It wasn't a question directed at me, but at the universe that had been so cruelly indifferent to his plight. "No," I answered, honesty cutting through the air between us. "But it sounded like she knew you. You're her father, right?" He finally turned, the pain in his gaze a reflection of 1,000 unshed tears. "Not just that. I've been absent." He swallowed those words like stones. "I lost my way while chasing my career in the name of ambition, but now." His hand trembled as it brushed through his hair, a gesture of despair. "Now she needs me. And it may already be too late." I felt a spark of determination rising within the storm of emotion surrounding us, even as a more profound ache churned in my chest, the reminders of my own past creeping through like wild vines. "The paramedic sounded hopeful," I said, attempting to anchor him in that moment of flickering light. He didn't respond, his face betraying a severe internal battle. "She might remember things. Things we have yet to explore together. I should have been there for every cry, every scrape. I thought I'd have time." His voice started to tremble again, and I reached out, placing a tentative hand on his shoulder, wanting to be a steady presence in his moment of chaotic vulnerability. "I think she'll remember you," I said, and the words felt as if they were pulling apart my own threads of unresolved connection. "There's a bond deeper even than time, don't you think?" He met my gaze, then broken, yet searching. "You think so? You don't even know her." I looked to the ground, a flood of memories cascading through my mind. "I don't, but I can feel it. Just like I felt this strange connection between us." I hesitated, my voice a mere whisper. "I think she might have recognized me, too." His brow furrowed, confusion threading through the cracks of his grief. "What do you mean?" "Right before they took her away she looked at me and said she knew me." The vulnerability in my voice left me exposed, and I braced myself against a sudden gust of fear. What was I uncovering? What significance could our paths possibly hold? He searched my face, eyes wide with the sudden chance that sprang into life between us. Do you think she could have known you from something? Or someone? I don't know. It's too strange, after all, I'm just some stranger who happened to be there. But it has me questioning everything," I confessed, the weight of truth pressing against the walls I had built. As we stood there, a sliver of understanding seemed to bridge the deep chasm separating us, drawing this shattered man closer to the fragments of my own past that I had tried so hard to forget. It was the kind of bond sealed with suffering and touching heartache, and I felt both terrified and invigorated. Just as determination began to take shape, a figure appeared on the outskirts of the fading light. It was a woman, rushing toward us, her hair billowing like dark storm clouds. Fear controlled her steps, and the frantic cadence of her movements shattered the already fragile atmosphere around us. "Where is she?" she gasped, scanning the crowd with wild eyes before landing on the father beside me. "Where is my daughter?" A jolt surged through me. This was her mother, the woman I had glimpsed in the locket. I barely registered her approach when the man's face transformed, rage and confusion twisting his expression into something unrecognizable. "You!" he spat, a wildness in his eyes. "You left her behind. You chose your job over her." I stepped back, fear shooting through me as the reality of our tangled past began to unfurl. Here stood the woman who had been the missing puzzle piece, a lingering question mark hanging in the balance of our entwined fate. I wanted to dive into the depths of what this meant, to reach across and grasp her hand, to know how our lives had collided, but I also sensed a storm gathering, and as she lunged toward her husband with nowhere left to shield her heart, it became clear that shadows were gathering, threatening to darken everything. "Are you two okay?" The woman's eyes shifted from him to me, searching for answers that neither of us had. "Your daughter, she cried out for you," I said, grasping for any semblance of connection that might help bridge the growing abyss. "And you, how do you know her?" she shot back, and I paused, feeling the weight of their fractured relationship and uncertain bonds. With the suspense hanging thick in the air, I was caught between revelations and the gnawing sense of dread. This moment promises to bind us in undeniable ways, yet pull us further from the truth we were seeking, a truth that now felt like an unfinished sentence, one that begged to be completed but held the scars of our unhealed pasts. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, I glanced between them, aware that fate had woven something complex and intricate, and wrestling with whether our paths were entwined, or if we were simply poised on the edge of calamity. The weight of the mother's burning gaze pierced through the soft twilight. She looked at me, a stranger who bore witness to her daughter's life hanging by a fragile thread. The air crackled with unspoken questions, and my heart pounded as the tangled web of our stories began to tighten. "Tell me," she demanded, her voice rising, layered with desperation and disbelief. "Did you see her? How badly is she hurt?" I hesitated. The truth felt heavy on my tongue, a crushing weight that threatened to plunge us all deeper into despair. My words faltered. The image of the girl's frightened eyes haunted me still. She was taken to the hospital. The paramedics were hopeful. I glanced at the father, whose expression had shifted to one of disbelief, a dazed look creeping over his furrowed brow. "Hopeful?" he echoed, incredulity lacing his tone. "Hopeful isn't good enough. How can you stand there, saying it like it matters?" "She could be David," the mother interrupted, her voice sharp and clear, cutting through the murky waters of distress. "Please. We need to stay focused." She turned back to me, pleading. "You meant something to her, didn't you? If she called out for you, yes. I mean, I think she recognized me." "I don't even know how," I admitted, my voice trembling. She knew something." David flinched, royally unhinged by the mixture of pride and pain swirling in his chest. "You think your words can just fix this? Can they bring her back to us?" His voice was rising, cracking like dry branches, splintering under mounting pressure. No. I wanted to yell back, to scream that this wasn't about blame, that we needed to tether ourselves to moments of hope instead of unraveling into chaos. That's not what I meant. I just thought maybe, but I couldn't finish, the air shackling me here, a triangle of shared agony, each point sharp and ready to puncture the fabric of whatever hope was left. "Look," I said, casting my gaze down toward the gravel, watching as dirt filled the spaces between my trembling fingers. "I know this is unbearable. But we are in this together now, however strange that feels. You need each other to be strong." Her eyes softened, though the blades of anguish remained drawn taut across her brow. I was out of touch. I didn't realize until it was too late. Mom. I tried so hard to reach you. The words burst from dense silence like a desperate cry, cutting through the weight of sorrow. The three of us turned toward a sudden voice, a tiny girl, her small stature dwarfed by the sorrow that hung above us. "Emma." The mother's voice fractured as she dashed toward her daughter's fragile form, now standing just at the edge of a makeshift barricade, seemingly untouched by the storm swirling around us. Relief washed over her face, only to be shortly shadowed by confusion as the girl paused, gaze fixed on me, as though she wandered into a surreal landscape, a split between what was and what could be. "I thought I saw you," Emma said, her voice faint but clear. Through the cracks of her hazel eyes shone an unwavering bond, a flicker of recognition that sent shockwaves through both parents. "What do you mean?" David whispered, his voice a quiet tremor. "I felt you right before she faltered, glancing at her parents. Then everything went dark. But you were there with me, right? You called for me." Tears pricked at the corners of her mother's eyes as she knelt closer. "Emma, I'm here now. Can you tell me what happened?" But Emma shook her head, distress shadowing her features. "I don't want to talk about that. I want to know why you left." A silence enshrouded us, filled with profound longing, searching for an anchor among the tangled emotions wounding our hearts. "Sweetheart," the mother's fingers reached to stroke her daughter's hair gently. A gesture I sensed had been taken for granted. "I had to know." Emma's small voice erupted. "You don't get to say that now. You don't get to run away." The rawness of her words ignited a fire within me. What I thought was our fragile moment of connection was now devolving into friction with every breath we took, an urgency. Dancing at the edge of a climatic storm. "Listen to each other," I urged softly. "This is a chance to understand," but the father's eyes were clouded with rage once more. "This isn't helping. This isn't going to fix what's broken between us. She needs things that we can't give her anymore." As David's gaze penetrated through me, I felt the fragile line between hope and despair tipping dangerously, stinging reminders of my own fragmented childhood surging forward like an unwelcome tide. "I couldn't let this family drown without a fight. I need you to step outside of your sorrow," I said, desperately grasping at straws, "and let love guide you. Emma needs to know you're both here for her, willing to confront the mistakes that have brought you to this moment." They all turned back towards each other, the fractals of their crises reflected in each other's glances, a delicate wavering hope born from the shambles of anguish. But just as the atmosphere began to shift, a piercing sound sliced through our fragile commits, an urgent buzz that charged the air. My phone vibrated in my pocket, drawing attention like a magnet. With trembling hands, I pulled it out, unsure of the source or its impact. The screen flashed ominously with an alert, a message from the hospital: "Emergency. Child in critical condition. Family must arrive immediately." Then, from a shadowy corner, a figure stepped forward, a doctor, her face drawn. "We have to go now. Time is of the essence." Suddenly, the strands connecting us became tenuous again, the looming shadows blocking out the possibility of the light ahead. As we stood at the precipice of an unimaginable reality, I could see it had all culminated into this moment, a moment that could either shatter us or redefine us entirely. And I couldn't shake the haunting feeling that this was merely the beginning of the storm, one that promised to tangle and ensnare every thread we sought to weave together, feeding on our uncertainties as it clawed toward revealed truths hidden in the depths of our hearts. The night deepened, each passing minute an echo of the chaos that brewed beneath the surface. As we stepped into the hospital's stark, fluorescent-lit hallways, the atmosphere shifted, the weight of impending dread pressing closer. A cacophony of beeping machines, hurried footsteps, and echoes of despair enveloped us. I walked beside Emma's parents, both gripped by anxiety, their fingers entwined as if searching for solace in one another. I didn't know what to say or how to ease the tension practically crackling between them. The air turned thick, heavy with the burden of unspoken fears and the fragility of life hanging in the balance. "Is she going to be all right?" David asked, the tightness in his voice betraying the easiness of his facade. I could feel his shoulders tense beside me, as if he was caught in an invisible battle to stave off the dark thoughts clawing at the edges of his mind. "We just have to wait," I replied quietly, though I felt the tremor in my own voice. The uncertainty left an ache in my chest that twisted tighter with each heartbeat. As we approached the waiting room, I noticed a small group huddled together in one corner. Two mothers held their children close, exchanging whispered conversations that felt impossibly intimate, while the father stared blankly into the floor, the weight of worry etched deeply into the lines of his forehead. One of the mothers caught my eye and offered a small, wistful smile, a flicker of warmth amidst our own bleak turmoil. I returned her gesture, hoping it connected us beyond the immediate pain surrounding us. This strange bond formed in our collective suffering felt like a lifeboat tossed in stormy seas, desperately clinging to hope against the crashing waves of reality. But my solace strained as I turned back to Emma's parents. They were now locked in a fierce discussion, barely hushed and laced with resentment. "Why did you need to leave?" David's voice hissed through gritted teeth. "Do you even understand the weight of your choices, Mary? The consequences?" I didn't. Mary's anguish spilled over as her voice rose, capturing the attention of those nearby. Around us, the chatter dimmed, all eyes shifting toward our fractured family. I felt like an intruder, even as the tension unfolded between them, wrapped in a cocoon heavy with unresolved history. "They might not understand, but I do," piped up a little girl from a few seats away, her voice both innocent and wise beyond her years. "My mom left too, but not because she wanted to, you know. Sometimes people go away to save you from all the bad stuff." I turned to the girl, surprised at her bravery. Her mother, a weary woman whose eyes reflected a well of hidden sorrow, offered a small nod of encouragement, clearly equally proud and heartbroken by her daughter's innocence. "It's complicated, sweetie," David murmured, his voice softening briefly. "But Emma needs us both right now." "Then we should focus on her," the girl persisted. "If my mommy could say she's sorry, I know it would make a difference. Maybe that's what Emma needs too." Mary seemed to falter, her steely resolve wavering under the illumination of this child's clarity. I didn't realize time felt suspended in that moment, an epiphany levitating in the space between them. Perhaps this unexpected kindness, the raw wisdom of a child, offered a flicker of hope, something to grasp onto. Just then, the double doors swung open, and a nurse appeared, her expression serious yet somehow gentle. I could feel the collective breath of anticipation held tightly in our chests. "Emma's family?" she inquired, and we all moved instinctively forward, a union formed in uncertainty. "She's stable for now," the nurse announced, unleashing a sigh of collective relief. "But she needs to be observed closely. The doctors will be in shortly to update you on her condition." The atmosphere settled, if only briefly, as gratitude coursed through us like a cradle of warmth. But I couldn't ignore the subtle tug at my heart, the knowledge that life was still precarious, balanced on the edge of a knife. Suddenly, a familiar presence flickered at the periphery of my vision, a figure right outside the hospital entrance, draped in a black hoodie, their face obscured. Something stirred deep within my gut, something that felt dangerously close to dread. As I stepped towards the entrance, the figure caught sight of me, their hood falling back to reveal a face etched with complexity, a face I recognized but thought long gone. My heart raced as the fragments of my past collided with the present. I turned back, alarm coursing through me as I realized this revelation had the potential to fracture the fragile hope we had begun to restore. I stood at the threshold of choices that would either splinter the delicate threads of our recent connections or somehow weave them tighter together. Would this unexpected encounter lead us into darker waters or shimmer with the possibility of healing? The joy of knowing Emma was stable intermingled with the chilling dread of what lay ahead, and I wasn't sure how it would all unfold. As the air bristled with unspoken truths, the unsettling tension thickened, and I felt the weight of choice loom over all of us. Where it would lead, I could only guess. The figure lingered just beyond the glass doors, a specter from my past that sent rivulets of fear coursing through my veins. It was Jamie, someone I had loved fiercely once, whose presence unveiled a tumult etched with complexity and regret. My heart thudded in my chest, memories cascading like a heavy rain, moments of laughter, shared dreams, and the heartbreak that had ultimately torn us apart. Why now? I whispered under my breath, an anguished question directed toward the universe rather than Jamie. The atmosphere around me felt electric, as if the very walls were privy to the tension pooling in my heart. "Who is that?" Mary asked, her voice still thin from earlier exchanges, but curious enough to pry my attention. I forced myself to turn back away from Jamie, searching for Emma's parents. The worry creased their faces, but they seemed oblivious to the gigantic wave brewing on the horizon. "Just someone I used to know," I replied, my voice betraying more than I intended it to. I felt naked before her gaze. She had always seen right through my defenses, though it had been years since I'd allowed anyone such access. To my surprise, instead of retreating back into the safety of our waiting room, I felt the pull of duty and inexplicable need to face the past that had returned. I took a deep breath and stepped out into the nighttime air, the coolness wrapping around me like a shroud. As I closed the distance between us, I could see the tremor in Jamie's hands, the choppy rise and fall of her breath. "I didn't think I would run into you here," I started cautiously, as tangled emotions erupted in my chest like wildfire. "Yeah, life has a way of throwing surprises at you," she replied, her voice like shards of glass against my heart. I got a call about Emma." "I'm so sorry." "What do you mean you got a call?" My tone sharpened. "Why would you be called about her? The last time I was here, she was well, she was with me. I didn't know that something had happened." She swallowed hard, her words heavy with regret. "When I found out, I had to come see if she was okay." Her admission knocked the breath from my lungs. The idea that Jamie had been part of Emma's life, even in a distant manner, made me feel like the ground had shifted beneath me. I'd spent years building walls, but suddenly, they felt porous. "She needs people who care about her right now," I managed, searching for direction in this newfound chaos. "You hurt her when you left." "I know," she said, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I know I did. And that's why I came back to make amends. I was a coward then, but I've been working on myself. I want to be someone worthy of the people I love." Her words hung there between us, raw and unfiltered, igniting all the unfinished narratives we had left unresolved. As the steely resolve of my heart began to vacillate, I glimpsed a path emerging, a possibility of healing not just for Emma, but for us as well. But just as I started to soften, my thoughts were shattered by the sound of footsteps echoing down the hallway. A sharp gasp pierced the air, and I turned to see Emma's parents standing close by, their eyes wide as they absorbed the sight of Jamie standing before me. "What is going on?" David's voice rang with authority, shattering the fragile moment. I could feel the tension crackle in the air like static, their concern morphing into suspicion. "Please, just let me explain," Jamie said, her voice steadied remarkably by the urgency of the moment. "Is that who I think it is?" Mary asked incredulously, crossing her arms as if to shield herself from the storm brewing before her. "Mom," I began, desperate to diffuse the rising waves of anger. "Did you bring the mess from your past back into our lives?" David erupted, his fists clenched as if ready to fend off a looming threat. "Please. I want to be here for Emma." Jamie protested, but the weight of her words hung in the air, distant and uncertain. I was caught in a cycle of panic, and the collective fear of losing Emma once again crept into my chest, wrapping it tight in a suffocating embrace. I needed to protect her, but how could I keep peace in a fragile alliance crumbling right before my eyes? Just then, a doctor stepped into the waiting area, clipboard in hand, the solemn expression on their face erasing everything else as the words tumbled from their lips. "Emma's condition has worsened. We need to act fast." The world seemed to lurch as the news sank in. All eyes turned toward the doctor, void of anything else, leaving potential reconciliations, painful pasts, and even present anger suspended in time. The hospital walls echoed our collective heartbreak, and I realized we were teetering on the brink of something profoundly visceral, an urgent response that could either bring us together or tear us further apart. In that moment, as the clock ticked furiously on, my heart screamed for the answers I feared I would never find as the medical staff moved with purpose down the hallway, ushering Emma away from us. Jamie stood frozen, caught between our past and the impending storm that threatened to engulf us all. Would we find a way back to each other in the midst of this turmoil, or would it leave scars too deep to heal? The stakes had multiplied, and I was left breathless, standing at the edge of an abyss with everything on the line: our connections to each other, our connections to Emma, and ultimately, our connections to hope. The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor flickered above me, casting ominous shadows as I stood at the precipice of uncertainty. The doctor's words lingered like a heavy fog around my heart, each syllable amplifying the fear that throbbed with relentless intensity. Emma needed us more than ever, but in this moment of crisis, I could feel the frayed edges of our fractured past threatening to unravel everything. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, I clutched the edge of the waiting room wall, trying to steady myself as I glanced back at Jamie. Her wide-eyed expression mirrored my own despair, and for the briefest second, our shared heartache ignited something deep within, the flicker of vulnerability, the desire to bridge the chasm between us. But that feeling was overshadowed by the urgency of the moment. "Shouldn't we follow them?" I found myself asking, my voice breaking with urgency as I looked to Emma's parents. "Yes, we need to," Mary said, her voice steely, but I could see the tremor in her hands. David nodded, and together we propelling ourselves forward. As we hurried down the stark, sterile halls, I could feel Jamie trailing behind, her footsteps uncertain. I wanted to reach out, to say something, anything that could turn the tide from fear to something more hopeful, but each breath was weighed down by past grievances. What if our reunion was too late, our chances stripped away by the ticking clock and turning wheels of fate? We rounded the corner, and I caught sight of a nurse pushing a gurney. Emma lay unconscious, surrounded by a flurry of medical personnel. My heart shattered at the sight. Wires and tubes snaked around her small frame, her pale face a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. I felt helpless, rendered completely powerless by the situation at hand. "Emma!" I yelled out, my voice raw and filled with despair, but the chaos drowned me out. The doors to the emergency room swung shut in front of me, leaving behind a silence that felt unbearable. I pressed my palms to the cold surface, my mind buzzing with the memories of her laughter, the lightness in her smile, and the way she filled every moment with hope. Emily. Jamie's voice was barely a whisper, but it reached me through the haze of panic. I turned to find her eyes glistening with unshed tears, the guards of her past defenses lowering ever so slightly. "I'm so sorry." Before I could respond, a woman rushed past us with a tray piled high with syringes and instruments, her focused stride signaling the critical nature of our waiting. I turned back to the emergency doors, my palms still pressed against the glass, despair threading through my words. "What are we supposed to do?" The cool embrace of Jamie's hand wrapped around mine, fierce and grounding. "We stay here for her," she said steadily, a flicker of determination igniting in her eyes. "We stay here for Emma." The sincerity in her tone etched a sense of unity between us, a thread connecting two hurting souls in desperate need of healing. We may have battled through years of misunderstandings, anger, and heartbreak, but now was not the time for divisions. My heart was torn, but the love I felt for Emma and the bond we shared began to weave a different narrative, one filled with fragility but also with hope. In the agonizing silence that followed, I felt a wave of warmth as Mary squeezed my shoulder, her small gesture offering me an ounce of comfort amid the uncertainty. "We'll get through this," she said softly, her eyes reflecting a resilience born from years of love for Emma. Just then, a commotion erupted down the hall. A figure burst into view, Annie, Emma's best friend, panting and wide-eyed. "I just heard. What is happening?" Her gaze flitted from me to Jamie, confusion making her brow furrow deeper. I opened my mouth to explain, but before I could find the words, Jamie stepped forward. "Emma's in emergency surgery. We're all here for her," she said, her voice surprisingly steady as she addressed the girl who had once filled Emma's life with joy. Annie's expression transitioned from panic to understanding, her resolve hardening as she joined our circle of grief and hope. "We need to do something," she urged, her voice rising. "We can't just wait here." The intensity of that moment caught fire in my chest, igniting an unexpected sense of purpose. "Let us wish for her," I breathed out. "Let us surround her with all the love we can muster." The idea spread like wildfire. We joined hands, a tenuous link of affection spanning across the divides we had all built, connected by one vibrant thread, our shared love for Emma. We leaned in closer, each heart echoing hope as we called out affirmations into the void. Each word was a battle cry against despair, a testament to the bonds that held us together, even through all the hurt. But just as I began to feel the swell of collective strength washing over us, an ominous shadow loomed from the depths of the hallway. A doctor exited the operating room, their face grave, the weight of their silence wrapping itself around us like a shroud. My breath caught as reality bore down, and I realized that in this tenuous moment of hope, we were about to face the raw truth that could either tear us apart or gather the pieces left in the wake of an uncertain future. "What is it?" I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. I squeezed Jamie's hand tighter, but the fears sparked in the corners of my mind refused to be quelled. A single glance exchanged between us spoke volumes: regret, fear, anticipation, and the shadow of what could have been filled the sterile air, just as hope wavered precariously on the brink of something unthinkable. The surgeon's face was an icy facade, masking the turmoil I could sense beneath the surface. The blaring sirens of my racing heart echoed in my ears, drowning out the muted sounds of the hospital. Jamie's grip on my hand tightened like a lifeline, but I could feel the tremor in her fingers echoing my own fear. "Is she okay?" Annie's voice trembled, the quiver betraying the determined front she had tried to put on. Each breath felt steeped in dread as we waited, searching that stoic expression for any glimmer of reassurance. The surgeon inhaled deeply, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause as if the universe was drawing in a breath alongside us. "We did everything we could. Emma, her condition is serious. She is stable now, but there may be complications moving forward." A wave of relief surged through me, albeit laced with the bitterness of uncertainty. Stable? A term meant to be comforting, yet all it unearthed was a gnawing anxiety about the future. No one spoke as we absorbed the impact of his words, the silence now a heavy shroud wrapped around us once again. I felt a sinking sensation, as if the very ground beneath my feet was collapsing into an abyss. "Can we see her?" Mary's voice broke the stillness, laden with a mother's desperation. The doctor nodded slowly, signaling uncertainty swirled within him. "Only 2 at a time. The room is monitored, and she'll need rest." Jamie and I exchanged glances, and in that fleeting moment, there was unspoken understanding. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something monumental, where news good or bad could cascade into a multitude of consequences for all of us. "I'll go with you," Jamie said, her voice steady as she made the decision for us both. "We both need to be there for her." I simply nodded, drowning in the ordinariness of such earnest words while feeling the weight of the unrevealed questions fluttering in my chest, questions about our past, our present, and what this meant for our future. As we entered the dimly lit recovery room, a fragile stillness enveloped us, like stepping into a sanctuary. Emma lay pale against crisp white sheets, wires and monitors surrounding her, beeping softly like whispered promises. She looked so small and diminished, the fierce sparkle that once lit up her eyes now clouded in unconsciousness. The sight buckled my heart, and I stepped closer. I reached out, brushing my fingertips against her cool hand. "Emma, it's me, Emily. We're here," I murmured, fighting back tears as solitude enveloped the room. I felt Jamie's presence beside me, her warmth an invisible tether connecting us as we stood vigil over Emma. "I'm so sorry for everything," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I just wish I could turn back time, to when things were simpler, to when we could laugh. Come back to us." I lost myself in the memory of a day at the beach, the way Emma laughed so heartily at our clumsiness trying to build a sandcastle, pink seashells strewn across her hair like trophies of joy. While my thoughts spun out into nostalgia and guilt, I felt Jamie lean in, her head bowed in quiet solidarity as she placed a soothing hand over Emma's. "We miss you, Em," she added softly, her voice reverberating with deep-felt sincerity. "You're so loved. You have to fight." The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, binding us together in hope. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker in Emma's eyelids, an imperceptible response to our whispered prayers. My heart surged with fleeting hope, but just as quickly as it began, it was quashed by the noise from the adjoining corridor. The rush of nurses and doctors, voices muffled through the door, carried with it an urgency that clawed at my gut. "I'll go check," Jamie volunteered softly, sensing my unease and squeezing my hand before stepping out of the room. Alone again, I was left with Emma's stillness, the flickering fluorescent lights throwing shadows that danced eerily across the sterile walls. Unbeknownst to me, the hours began to slip by, a blur of waiting rooms and whispered conversations, punctuated by the ebb and flow of fear and hope. Stray thoughts about our past missteps flooded my mind, regrets gnawing at the edges, but they were forcibly chased away by a sudden commotion outside. I rose, stepping tentatively toward the door where Jamie had just exited. I could see her animated silhouette moving back and forth as she spoke with a group of nurses. Anxiety prickled at my skin as I reached for the handle, uncertainty swirling back in the depths of my heart. "Is everything all right?" I managed to ask as I pushed the door open, only to be met with Jamie's stricken face, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Emily, there's something you need to know," she stammered, the color draining from her face. In that moment, a new wave of fear washed over me, the realization lingering like an uninvited shadow ready to unravel everything we began to piece back together. "Emma, she told me something before the surgery," Jamie said, her voice barely above a whisper, laden with a gravity that twisted my stomach. "What did she say?" I edged closer, my heart racing, the question tasting bitter on my tongue, fear clawing for a respite that wouldn't come. Jamie took a breath, and in that single, suspended moment, it felt as if the world around us was poised on the brink of a revelation that could alter the very foundation of everything we thought we knew. The tension was thick, a silent earthquake building beneath our feet, ready to shatter the fragile peace we had found. The air in the hospital shifted, an undercurrent of tension that seemed to thrum through the sterile walls, amplifying the uncertainty encircling us. Jamie's gaze drifted past me, her mind racing, and I could almost see the thoughts colliding behind her eyes, frantically searching for the right words that could somehow hold our fragile world together. "Emily, she said something about you before they took her in for surgery," Jamie finally let out, the fear in her voice weighing heavily in the air. "She said you had to know the truth. That she had something to tell you." The word struck me like a punch to the gut, and I froze. Every beat of my heart echoed with unadulterated terror and anticipation. "What truth?" I pressed, my voice barely escaping as I strained to hold on to the small fragments of composure that remained. Jamie stepped closer, the proximity allowing the warmth of our shared fear to entwine us again. I didn't really understand at first, but she took a moment, her breath catching as she fought against the swell of emotion. "She mentioned something from years ago. Something we thought was over. Emily, she said she never stopped loving you." The revelation hung heavily in the air, a storm cloud gathering within my heart. My mind raced back to the time when life was simpler, when love flowed easily between us, unburdened by the chaos of adulthood. Never stopped loving me? Did Emma really mean that? As the memories rushed back, I felt an ache deep within, forged from all the missing pieces of our past. "You have to understand, Emily. I don't know what it means," Jamie's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back to the terrifying present. "But if there is something she wanted you to hear, you need to talk to her. When she wakes up." "Talk to her about what?" I asked, desperation lacing my words. "About the life we built separate from one another. About the hurt when we stopped being friends? I don't know if that's something she wants to bring back. Jamie's eyes widened and a flicker of concern flashed across her face. No. That's not what I'm saying. This may not just be about the friendship and everything that's happened. It could be something deeper, and you need to be prepared. Whatever she tells you, you have to hear her out. It might change everything. But change? Wasn't that precisely what we'd been trying to avoid? I couldn't shake the suffocating feeling that the direction of my life, our lives, depended on the next breath Emma would take. My heart raced as I tried to fathom the depths of Jamie's implication that I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could find the words, a flurry of bustling activity erupted outside the room. A doctor appeared, and my heart sank into my stomach. Was something wrong? I stepped aside to let him through, compelled by an anxious instinct. Emily, is Emma stable? His voice was calm, yet firm, as he began recounting details from her surgery. We're still monitoring her condition closely. Can we talk to her? Should I be ready to? The question hung heavy between us, but I couldn't bear to voice what my mind spiraled into. Should I be saying goodbye? The doctor looked at me, studying my face. It's too early to tell. We have some complications we're monitoring, and it's crucial she rests. When she wakes up, we'll evaluate her situation further. But know that she's fighting. Fighting. Those words coursed through me like a flickering flame, lighting a spark amid the darkness. If Emma was fighting, then we could too. I grasped that thread of hope, both eager and terrified at the same time. The doctor left, and I turned to Jamie, my heart pounding with possibilities. What if she needs to share something important? What if it's truly profound? Is there a chance it could change everything? Jamie nodded slowly, her expression folding into an understanding that mirrored my own turmoil. Then we'll be here for her. We'll be right by her side. I could feel the tug of reality pulling again, a reminder that hope and heartache coexisted like shadows beneath the trail of severity, binding us together. We lingered just outside Emma's room, our breaths silent and soft under the weight of our unspoken fears as we braced ourselves for the journey ahead. Then, the moment shattered when the door flung open unexpectedly, nurses rushing past, their urgency wrapping me in a suffocating fear. The room echoed with cries I dared not approach, a whirlwind of uncertainty that laid siege to my heart. Emily! Jamie! A voice cried, piercing the chaos. Someone I didn't recognize, but in their gaze, I saw a familiar flicker of anxiety. There's been an emergency. You need to come with me. Panic surged in my chest. My heart clenched as I turned to Jamie, something dark and ominous dawning on us both. What's wrong with Emma? I grasped her hand tightly, but the stranger's grip pulled me in the other direction, a force I was powerless to resist. Please. We need you now. There's no time. With a heavy heart, I stumbled forward, leaving Jamie behind, each step away filled with dread. What were they going to tell me? Would I find Emma on the precipice of something monumental? Would it be too late to hear her truth? As I stepped through the threshold into an unknown dimension of pain, my breath hitched. Both the fear of what lay ahead and the weight of everything unaddressed gnawed at my core. I could almost hear Emma's voice whispering in the back of my mind, "There's something you need to know." But as I ventured deeper into the storm of uncertainty, I wished only to wake from this nightmare and find myself on that sunlit beach, where laughter and memories enveloped us, a moment forever beyond reach. The truth I was hurtling toward felt like an abyss, and I was plummeting in, spiraling into questions that might never see the light of day. The room I stepped into was steeped in a sterile tension, the thick smell of antiseptic hanging heavy in the air. I barely registered the doctors surrounding Emma, their faces tight with concentration as they spoke in rapid, hushed tones. I felt as if I had suddenly fallen into the depths of a surreal nightmare, one where the world had turned upside down with no warning, and I didn't know which way was up. Please. I murmured, desperate for answers as my heart hammered in my chest. I took a step closer, pushing aside the nurse who blocked my path, but she gently guided me back with a firm yet kind grip. "We need you to remain calm," she instructed. "We're doing everything we can." Calm. The very word felt like a cruel joke in a moment such as this. My instincts screamed at me to fight through, to reach for the girl who had been a light in my life in ways I had only just begun to understand. Could I ever find rest knowing that I might not have another chance to hear her voice? A spotlight of dread pierced through my chest as I looked past the sterile white curtains to where she lay, surrounded by machinery that hummed ominously. The world outside felt a galaxy away. I had no idea how long I'd been in this hall, only that I felt suspended in time. Suddenly, a figure burst into the room. It was Jamie, and in her eyes, I saw the reflection of my own misery. "They said they need us," she gasped, her breath catching in her throat as the reality of Emma's condition weighed heavily between us. "Emily. Something's happening." My heart leaped, and I pushed through the throng of medical personnel, Jamie right beside me. We reached a point where the chaos around us swirled like a storm, and then it settled. Everything felt eerily quiet as I entered the realm of heartbreak, where love fought against the shadows crept on the periphery. She was still, her small frame captured like a frail butterfly in a glass jar. I could hardly breathe as I approached her bedside. "Emma, can you hear me?" I whispered, hope clinging to each word like a lifeline. Gradually, over the beeping and the murmurs of the medical team, I thought I saw a flicker in her eyelids. "Please, Emma, you have to fight. We're here for you." My voice trembled, my heart aching with every word, and then, in a moment that felt like the universe itself held its breath, Emma's eyelids fluttered open. Where once I saw only clouds and fright in her gaze, there now danced a spark, faint but growing. The world around us melted away as her soft gaze landed on me, her eyes glistening with warmth that offered a flicker of reassurance amid the chaos. "Emily," she whispered, her voice fragile, yet carrying a weight of meaning that reverberated deep within me. I leaned closer, clutching her hand tighter, breathing in the strength of her presence. "I'm here, sweetheart. We're both here." My tears began to fall, a silent testament to all we'd fought through to make it to this moment. She said I had to tell you." Emma struggled to breathe, the pulse of life emanating from her small wrist threading through my heart. I remembered. Confusion swirled, but desperation clung tighter. "Remembered what?" I pressed, the questions slipping out like beads of sweat. You were always meant to be part of my story, to be the one I looked for, but I was scared. Scared of everything, even of the truth." The words spun into the air, leaving echoes of connection and vulnerability that threaded through the fabric of our intertwined lives. At that moment, Jamie took a step forward, her eyes wide and glistening. "Emma, I'm so sorry too. I should have been there the whole time." The connection felt palpable in the room, three souls bound by love, history, and choices, however murky. "My truth?" Emma whispered. "It's about you both. About how love can heal." Her gaze shifted between us, soaking in the understanding, even as her strength waned. "All those years, I wished for you before wishing I hadn't let fear and doubt chase you away." My heart swelled with memories of laughter, friendship, and even the grief that had once defined us. This was the reconciliation we had never grasped, laid bare before us, even in the wake of tragedy. Jamie knelt down beside her, brushing back a lock of Emma's hair. "We're here now. And we still love you, Emma. I had to face a lot to come back, but now it feels like this moment is everything I've needed," she said, her voice steadying with belief. As tears spilled over my cheeks, I could see it all unfolding, the weight of everything I had thought was behind me crashing together with the urgent need for resolution. I'd never realized how intertwined our destinies were, bound by threads of love that time could not sever. "Please fight for us, Emma. Fight for yourself. You matter." The words poured out of me with urgency, desperate prayers for her to embrace the truth that could and would carry us into the light. In that moment, a nurse rushed to Emma's side, quickly glancing at her monitors, and I felt the air shift with the weight of impending urgency. My heart raced at the thought of losing her, the image pushing against the realization of what we might mean to each other now. A shadow flitted across my vision, a figure emerging on the periphery. David and Mary stepped into the room, their eyes filled with anxiety and hope. "Is she?" Mary began, but her voice melted in quiet disbelief at the sight before her. "Emma?" Emma's weary face shifted, the faintest flicker of recognition in her eyes meeting theirs. "Mom, Dad." The words fell like soft echoes, bridging the distance that had grown between them, slowly, gradually reaching into the realms of their pasts entwined with hope. Love transcended the fissures dug deep in their hearts and coiled like ribbons around Emma, binding us all tighter. "I'm here," David's voice broke, raw and vulnerable. "We're here. We missed you." I took a breath, realizing that while the shadows might linger, they were now mere echoes of what once had been, unable to drown the light of newly woven love. I took a step back, allowing them space, wrapping my arms around Jamie as we both silently surrounded the moment, knowing that each spoke volumes through the intertwined history we all shared. Emma's gaze flitted, capturing the essence of our connections, the very truth of love that ultimately made us human, and then, something stirred in Emma's gaze, something stronger beyond just our gathering. "Mom, Dad, this can be good. I believe it can be good." Her voice gained strength as we wished fervently that love could bridge the distances we born ran. In that sphere of hope, I felt the weight of uncertainty lift, sagging somewhere in the depth of silence between us, signs before us reshaping our own hearts. As the chaos would soon thrill through us all while we grappled with life and heartbreak, I knew deep down it would be okay, and I would weather the storm with them. "Our story isn't over yet, Emma. None of us." The words, a whisper of solidarity, echoed off the walls of the room, igniting the flicker of hope that heralded the possibility of renewal for all of us. In that moment of connection, of love spanning the abyss, I closed my eyes against the tears and simply welcomed the embrace of understanding. I would face it all, no matter how dark it got, alongside them. We were bound together, our journeys overlapping, an uncharted landscape before us, ready to step forward. All of this because we stumbled back into one another, heart in hand, willing to rewrite a story predicated on resilience. And as Emma's breaths gradually steadied, a soft light broke through the promise of a new arc that, even in its uncertainty, sparkled with endless possibility, illuminating a future that felt filled with hope. For we were alive. And love would guide us.